Mr. Majid Jafar, CEO of Crescent Group, thank you so much for joining us from the OPEC seminar. I want to start off by a theme that was touched on here at the seminar, which is investment in the upstream sector. And given where prices are, the volatility we're seeing, for Crescent Group, how do you view investments?
So I think we would endorse what we've been hearing this morning from the UAE minister and others, that we've had a decade at least of underinvestment globally in the upstream, particularly in oil and gas. And that there are concerns about how that's going to be playing out. That we lose 5 million barrels a day at sometimes up to 7, 8 per year, just with natural decline rates. And you have a growth in demands, whether that's 1 million barrels, 2 million barrels a year. So that means, in effect, we need to add a new Saudi Arabia in capacity every couple of years, which is, so the question is, where is that coming from? From our point of view, we're active in the private sector, in the Middle East, and especially on natural gas. When we started over 50 years ago, we were almost all oil, and in the UAE, we are now over 80% natural gas, and in other markets such as Iraq in a big way. Egypt also through our affiliate, Dana Gas. I think oil, if we look globally, is largely being now supplied by national oil companies. So governments play a big role. And it's fungible, storable, tradable. The concern that I have personally is an underinvestment in natural gas, because that is much more dependent on the private sector. It's much more capital intensive, longer time horizons, and the world's failure to invest sufficiently in natural gas as the demand keeps growing means we've seen price spikes, we've seen shortages and supply shocks, even in Europe, developed markets. And as a result, the developing world has been burning more coal and wood and biofuels, the dirtiest kinds of fuels, energy in terms of emissions, because it's what's available, it's what's cheap. So we're actually failing on all three legs of the so-called energy trilemma. The affordability, the availability, and sustainability, because the emissions are going up. So what we do, we're very focused on investing in gas in the Middle East, but we really see the need for that. And part of that is Western capital markets turning against all traditional forms of energy over the last decade. And lumping them all together, even though...
Complaining about energy security at the same time.
Sure. So even though gas replacing coal has been the biggest driver down of emissions globally. I mean, that's how the US did it. That's how the UK has achieved Victorian era levels of emissions with the gas to coal switch. And then enabling renewables and complementing renewables. The UAE's energy policy is exactly that for 2050. It's about 40% gas backing up 40% renewables, and then nuclear and other forms. So we hope to see more rational energy policy like that, instead of an ideological no to fossil fuels, no to traditional forms, only investing in solar and wind, and then no answer for when the sun doesn't shine or the wind doesn't blow.
I'm glad you brought up gas, and I'm going to ask you about the Khormor project and the progress that Crescent made there. Can you give us an update? Sure.
So the Khormor, the KM250 expansion project, which is aiming to increase our capacity in the Khormor field in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, is currently underway, and we're targeting first quarter of next year for startup, and hopefully sooner. We're doing everything we can to accelerate that. We had various challenges over the past few years. We had COVID, we had some security incidents, drone attacks, but thankfully, touch wood now, things are moving forward well, and we hope that'll start up soon. And in parallel, we're looking at an appraisal and early production scheme for Chemchemal, for the other field, hopefully on stream within a year from now, and more appraisal in both fields, including oil production. So in Chemchemal, we hope to start with 80 million cubic feet per day, but in addition to the production, we'll also be looking at appraising the field more, both the 3D seismic that we're shooting and new well test data.
Majid, you mentioned, Bill, there's a need to invest in capacity and upstream capacity. And we know that Crescent signed a number of blocks in federal Iraq. What's the status of that?
Yeah, so we're moving forward with those. First in the Diyala area, where we have the Khashm al-Ahmar and Injana fields in a block. So we've shot some initial seismic. We'd actually planned to spot our first well this year, but now we might instead shoot the whole block of seismic. We're using this nodal new seismic technology, and we found the data to be high quality, and the time is quite quick, and the cost is lower because of this new wireless technology. So we'll shoot the whole block with an aim to spudding the first well next year. And we're also doing in parallel exploration studies in the Khadr al-Mai block, which is in Basra governorate on the Kuwaiti border. That's a different type of contract model. That's more, it's called an exploration, although there are some discoveries and certainly lots of prospects. So we're moving forward with all of those in parallel.
Any data you can share with us on the prospects? I mean, what kind of production are we talking about? I mean, what's the...
So it's probably too early to say for Khadr al-Mai and Basra, but in Diyala, what's good is actually the field is 60 to 80 kilometers from what we're already operating in Khormor. Very similar geology, so we feel we know it, and it's likely to be a multi-TCF field with capacity certainly to do hundreds of millions of cubic feet per day, and rising up hopefully to billion cubic feet and beyond that over time. It's a long-term contract, 20-year contract.
Great. You touched a little bit about the security situation in the Middle East and the 12-day war that we saw. I mean, being based in the UAE, we had a front row seat really to this risk. Do you think this geopolitical risk is over for the region? How concerned are you about how it would impact the energy sector?
So I think in terms of impact on energy markets, what's interesting and was commented on this morning is, in a sense, how little the impact was. It was a bump of about $5 per barrel, which quickly settled back down. And it became clear that there wasn't going to be this big spillover on Straits of Hormuz, or a wider conflagration. And actually, certainly it was a night that everybody in the region will remember. And yet the next morning, the ceasefire was agreed, and everybody hopes that it will indeed be the beginning of a more stable outcome. Of course, our hearts go out to the people in Gaza and all of those lives affected by all conflicts in our region, and we all hope for a more peaceful region. And hopefully with more cooperation, that can be achieved. What's interesting though, and it's not just our region that has geopolitical risk or conflict, Europe, another case in point,
Russia,
global
Ukraine.
Trade wars, tariffs. What's interesting though, at least on the tariffs and in the Middle East, is that energy has been largely kept out of it. And even, the tariffs, energy was excluded. In the Middle East, nobody had an interest in disrupting energy supplies. And, I remember in the 80s, we had the Iraq-Iran war, 8-year massive war, the longest international conflict of the 21st century, or 20th century rather. And yet the oil supplies continued, cooperation in OPEC continued. So the energy markets, even in terms of the energy diplomacy, is able to carry on, and notwithstanding hot wars sometimes that might happen in our region.
No, thank you for that reminder. I mean, does go on, and they always talk about cohesion within an OPEC and wars going on. So the group has managed to keep its cohesion even through wars. Mr. Majid, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to be with you.